of that time civil society, because they told that is written in the papers of that times that, you know, of course we are Pravoslavs, and in Moscow there are also Pravoslavs, but we know that freedom is here, and there in Moscow is tyranny. So that was the main thing of that times, why such civil society position formed there of various noblemen of Grand Duchy of Lithuania. So the question for our dear guest Alexei Rostovich, how would you rate the Ukraine's preparation to the aggression? We all see that the position of Ukrainians was very supportive to the troops, Ukrainian army and Ukrainian government, and maybe what helped and what just disturbed in that situation from these activities, and did the Ukraine was prepared to this conflict or no?
So, if we speak about informational war, so we have a great myth which is Russians produce, and they want to say Ukraine and Mr. Zelensky do not prepare for this war. Is it totally lie, because we have only in military sphere about 5 huge whole Ukrainian exercises for preparing for this war. And we start to mobilize and provide different military efforts in the middle of December. So we completely understand. And we have to choose between the economical and military measures, because if we provide full-scale military measures, it will go down our economics. And there's a big problem with the collective opinion, because somebody do not want to believe the war will start in Ukrainians. And now a lot of people ask us, why do you not prepare us about starting of the war? And I say always in this way, because there is no state in the world who could manage with this sort of things. To speak to the nation, you know, dear, tomorrow we will be great continental war. Russia strikes us, and because we have 3 main dangers. Russia could use it in the propaganda. They say Ukrainian start a war, Ukrainian start to aggression on the so-called DNR and Lenin Republic, something like this. And they say this. Next one, it's panic, massive panic, and a lot of refugees do not be able us to move the forces from the west to the east country. And next one, it's a lot of laughing, because you know Ukrainian people. The half of our population says you're crazy, no war, and paranoid and something like this, and доверие, trust. And it's not increase of trust between government and people, which is from the information war point of view, is the main goal for enemy, to break trust between government and people. It's the main goal in information war, in hybrid war. So that's why. But we prefer a lot in military. And what about civil society? When the war starts, the civil society give us, like government, give us the whole necessary support as we can imagine. Because first of all, it's military volunteers, which is go to the army and territorial defense. Second, just сопротивление.
Resistance.
Just for resistance, civil resistance. They make like Molotov cocktail, they shooting by the hunting rifles, a lot of sort of things, mining the roads and a lot of this. And if you know, do you know, the Poltava region, it's one region from 2026 in the north, between Kharkiv and Kiev. And our police, after Russian withdrawals, try to collect weapons, and they collect 11 Russian tanks from the just ordinary people, which is been taken by our just for farmers and just peasants. And this is a sign of the level of battle. And next one is just civil volunteers for humanitarian aids and something like this. And another one, it's a informational war, cyber war. It's a lot of volunteers. There's probably 80% of success. It's a volunteer society which is working closely with government. And it's even difficult for me to say in which spheres the civil society don't give us support. It's that we work together. We a little bit strange nation, because when Ukrainian in the peace, it's a lot of tensions between us. For every повод, как будет? Повод, по любому поводу. For any reason, we have tensions. When the war starts, we collect immediately, and we stay together against the enemy. So, because government looking with little bit bureaucracy, even the big war start. War, it's not about meters and not about units. War on the operative and strategical level about rhythms. And civil society make the things more better and more quickly than government, even when government rechange for the war style управление. Ruling system. And that's why when the first day struggles, first two or 3 weeks, and with the speed, it was main goal we need civil society doing this job very, very quickly and very successfully. It's four goals: military volunteers, territorial defense volunteers, humanitarian volunteers, civil volunteers, and cyber and information volunteers. For some point of view, me is civil society in the office of the president, because I'm the advisor on the civil advisor of the office of the president. And what we're learning from this? We're learning we have to trust our people. We have a great discussion about weaponry in the hands of the civil society, on the population before the war. And we give from 120,000 automatic rifles in the hands of the people. The first 6 hours of the
just only showing passport, yeah.
No, not only showing passport. Just sign, and you have. And no any case for using in criminal purpose or just in the tensions. No, 6 months. No criminal using of this war. Every Ukrainian man now has 2 automatic rifles in the house, or something like this. Every active Ukrainian man. No any cases for criminal using of this. Before the war, it was a lot of fretting about this. We can't give automatic weapon for people. And main learning from this, we have to trust civil society more than we trust before the war started. It's an experience of the great trust, and that is the main goal. And now we understand, we can, and I finished, we can give and provide more, we could, like a government, could base more and more on the civil society than it be before. We have a very close co-working with specialists from hybrid war. It's intelligence. It's cyber war. It's mean informational war. It's very closely. If you know that the famous Inform Napalm group, they provide async intelligence, and they provide a great experience for informational war. It's a great example of the civil society, no military, just civil people.
Another question is, now you're looking to that situation of the beginning of aggression from a time distance. So maybe, in your opinion, you can say what could be done better than it was in dealing and in preparing to the war.
It's a difficult question because I, like a military man, I saw that 7 war starts. The first Chechen, Yugoslavian war in 1999. And the second Gulf War, it's Russian-Georgian war, and war starting catching the Crimea. Yeah. Before 5 minutes after the plane in the air already done, even the people who see the 3 war starting don't believe war start, because it's so unnormal for people to be big war, and. I see my own eyes when the second Gulf War start. I have my head of command. He's a colonel. He used to fight in Afghanistan, the Soviet period. Take a part in the 3 wars, and we see the American planes and coalition planes go up from airfields, and they close to Iraqi border, and he says me. Missiles go, Tomahawks goes, and he says me, maybe it's just airstrike. It's not a war. It's difficult to believe. Yeah. So we completely understand the war began. We achieved they strike in the south and the strike in the east, because striking for the Kiev was stupid. Yeah. I already explained this, and we were ready for this, but the problem is we don't trust civil society. As we can trust now. Could we trust them more before this war? I don't think so, really. Because we need real experience about this. Now we understand we could trust civil society more and more better and wide than it was before, but understand before the war that you could give the anti-tank launch grenadier just for civil person, and she don't sell it, he don't hide it, and he strike to the Russian tank. It's very difficult to believe, because it's a difficult military operation to cut Russian supplies line. You have to have some experience. You have to be like training like saboteur, but not our farmers, our peasants could this job very, very well without this, but nobody can imagine before. And now we understand we can go to the Switzerland model and to provide weapon in every house and to be ready for whole total resistance. And our law, which under President Zelensky providing, we take this law in our parliament in the November, if I remember accuracy, which is the concept of the total war defense of Ukraine, which has been a good trusting for civil society. In military exercises, in information war, I don't think so, really. It's not for just apologizing. I really think that some things could be provided without real experience. Now we understand this, and we could give you for this is sort of experience. You could learn from our mistakes. Yeah. But before the war, it's really it's not невозможно. Yeah. Impossible. Yeah, really impossible. People do not want believe in the big war, and same people who provide a very aggressive resistance in the next day after war began, before 1 day to begin, if you say him, you need us to strike in Russian tanks, they say, laughing and say, you are crazy. Just this is a problem. People do not believe in the big war. When I spoke with the deputy of the Minister of Defense of Latvia, it's 2 weeks ago. I say you have to prepare to war. In strongly believe that it was starting at one day. And it was a wide discussion in Latvia. Aristovich provocate us. It will not be war. We not. We don't be afraid. I say, if you won't prepare the war, civic pacem parabellum. If you want to preserve the war, you have to prepare the war every day, in believing the war start next day. There's only one possibility for do this. So I could just say learn our mistakes and provide the total preparing for the war, as you believe the war start next day after this day. There's only possibility to be ready for the war.
Yeah, probably to change understanding, it's the most difficult thing. And so I'd like to address another question for our Lithuanian participants, for maybe you, Valdas. So what can we learn from the preparation of Ukrainians, and how we can probably use the potential of people of our country in such situations?
Of course, we have very comfortable position to see what happened in Ukraine and have a time to change something, yes. And what we can learn, that really we have to prepare for total defense, all our economic and all our people, to think that war is alternative to the scenario we have before. And we have a lot of things to change in our education system, especially education system, but also in culture, also in preparation of our towns, of building of our roads, and a lot of things. Because people begin to think that maybe war will be. Yes, it's very good for us. But and we in our committee in Parliament really work on this, on preparing our society for defense and prepare and create what they need to done. The most important thing for organizing of people are to have a structures. We know this from 1991, then when you have to go to some activities, you have to have some circles when you can trust your neighbors. They can be relatives, neighbors, organization members, and church members, and not important which kind of organization, but people have to trust each self. Yes, it's a very important thing. And so sometimes our state have a consideration, such non-governmental organizations are not important, people maybe have too much time, and they do not important things. Really, we have to rely and to trust our organization. I'm as a scout leader for more than 30 years. I know very good what it means when people are connected between themselves and trust. And they know that this man is very good in activities, this man very good in administration. They not need the time to form such unit, but this unit exists really. You only can change a form. And we really use such lessons learned. But what we meet always some bureaucracy resistance. No, maybe we have to trust only on our people who are paid, yes, how we can take something. But step by step, we go through such bureaucratical resistance, and in our parliament we have some very important projects which really open gates for new system. But we have to understand that when your war is over, the same problems will come back. Yes, because these people simple, think from their own experience. But what we also understand that we can't trust buying our weapons from the states which are very, very far from. Yes, because when you need ammunition need all the Europe. Yes, so you have to have something to produce in our country, the most important things, because it's simple way. Yes, you get immediately what you mean. And maybe the third lessons learned is that people more maybe are united. We feel in our parliament, I understand that some image from outside is that people are fighting in this parliament always, but when we were 2 days ago in Prague and have people from opposition, we understand in the matters of defense we are a very united nation. Very united, not important which party you are. And so this idea of unity of all the people, understand that we are not similar and not the same, it's very good for us, and I think that our spirit is going back to the time of Warsaw, to the time of 2020, 2022. And, but we have a lot of things to do, especially in education, because long time Lithuanian education system skipped all such patriotic things, thinking that we need to create some democratical people. But as I say in Lithuania, citizen is man from the castle, pilietis. Yes, so each citizen have to have his own city, his own castle. And if you not understand that you need one flag, really, on this, you are not really citizen, but you are a man who can move from one country to other country, yes. And I spent a lot of time in Poland, and what I always impressed is unity between the church and school in this country. They create really strong citizens, yes, and in the time of event, they will be modernized, mobilized, and do. So we have to trust.
I want to ask the same question to Davidas. Maybe not only in the military meaning, but also in political and other meanings. What should we learn from the preparation of Ukraine to the war?
I like the topic idea of trust, but maybe from different angle. Let's look globally, then more bureaucratically. You're not fighting alone. Trust your friends, trust your allies, trust what your friends are telling you. So what I think, maybe days before the military action started in February, so trust what intelligence is telling to you. Your intelligence community, be it American, British, Lithuanian or Polish. I think this war in Ukraine, when we're discussing publicly what is happening in Ukraine and doing analysis of all this war fighting, we are sometimes too much concentrating on the real war fight element, but we see talking less about diplomacy. If you want to sanction Russia, diplomats working extra hours to do that. But in order to sanction Russia or to know what Russia is planning to do, you should get more intelligence. So trust your intelligence. And what my lesson learned was from, let's say, from the February or even before February, that I have to say, surprisingly, even to me, British American intelligence really was not only precise quite a lot, but also very forcefully messaged. United States is not doing that kind of messaging very often. And after Iraq events 2003, there was big distrust in American intelligence community. What is it really will happen what you say? Because in the past you lied, you really lied. So, but that is maybe, well, America, Britain, France, it's question maybe do you like it or not, but in a sense, bureaucratically, trust and invest in intelligence community. They are your eyes, ears, because in order to do anything, you need information. So that is intelligence, I think. And that is trust. Trust in your intelligence community, trust in your friends who will give you some information. Another point of trust is not only civil society as an active participant in fighting with weapons or without weapons, but also how to convince society not to be depressed. So that is strategic communication. You have to win your audience. You have to be like our guest from Ukraine, who is talking every evening and calming down people in Ukraine and outside Ukraine that yes, difficult days, but we still alive, we have a plan, we're moving forward step by step. So you must create this trust in conceptual perception level. So basically strategic communication, the way how you communicate, how you disseminate information, and how you win trust from common people that me or colonel or ambassador or member of parliament will stand up, let's say, in front of camera, and what we say, people will trust our expertise and our information. Especially when this propaganda war is happening, and Orsha battle is a very good historical case of fight in propaganda level, yes. I always use this battle for my students to show, let's say, that information war was happening long time before internet and the social media. So that is, I want to be talking about, well, one point about civil society. And I like this moment, let's say, that you have to trust your citizens in a way, because total defense is a good concept, but it cannot be only directed from above. Civil society means that civil society is also autonomous, and they have the right to improvise, to be jazz players, even when the government or military sometimes doesn't like the improvisation. But that's how it works. You cannot direct everything from the above. Otherwise, it won't work. And that's the most difficult part. How to find a way, let's say, that government is providing, let's say, some structure, civil society is playing in the frame of that structure, but also doing sometimes in their own way. And you're not punishing them, you're not ignoring them. So that is the most difficult part, which we actually now in Lithuania entering. We created a legal frame already. Now we're starting implementation and looking for a role for everybody players. But that is trust. Trust friends, trust what you're saying, and trust people who are doing improvisation.
Thank you. Maybe you, dear Colonel, can say what have you learned as a specialist of counter hybrid operations from that situation from Ukraine?
Oh, I don't know if I'm a good hybrid specialist, more military, but main thing that for sure, as in other countries, NATO countries or neighboring countries, in Lithuanian armed forces, we following situation. For this, I can tell you for sure, lessons learned. It's analyzed, thought about them each day, our structures working on that. So I will not give today now answer what lessons learned, classification or some areas, but for sure our armed forces specialists work on that. So of course it's a pity that we need or that we are learning from this situation, but of course first thing we are learning. Another thing, what I think not military, only military man, but each person probably in Lithuania see the will to fight. This is one of the main lessons what we're learning from Ukraine. This is will to fight of Ukrainians. And it looks like it comes from nowhere. Even, of course, you have 8 years of smaller scale war. And probably this was the reason that your people learn to fight or to have this will to fight. Then if we are talking about hybrid wars, there is probably nothing secret of what. There was energy attacks, there were hybrid cyber attacks, there were informational attacks, and there were military attacks. So in our understanding what is hybrid, all these 5 areas were used in Ukraine before war, full-scale operation started. So this is main outcome, and we should be prepared for that. We should analyze what we are doing this and follow the situation, what is around us. Thank you.
Okay, so Of course, we discussed that Ukrainian society enthusiasm in facing fighting aggression was in a very great scale. But anyway, the coordination is somehow necessary. So maybe can you say that that improvisation, improvisation of society fighting the enemy? Okay, so they just fighting as they can, as they understand that, as it's possible for them to do, or so. It was coordinated from government of Ukraine enough, or maybe it should be coordinated better, and maybe some actions taken from the society was of course useful. And maybe you can tell about the harm, maybe what your own patriots did in that fight.
The main problem is Ukrainian has 8 war years before. They have 1 million people who пострадали, who suffering because of war. And we have about 3,100 people who fight in the war, exactly, the war veterans. And how you think? What part of Ukrainians believe in the big war and necessary of preparing for the war? It's not a popular topic in our country.
How many was really prepared?
Yeah, really prepared. I really believe to necessary to be prepared. It's a great problem. Overvalued. The level of understanding people is overvalued. Now we all speak about information. We all speak about social media, and we think if in country 8 years during it's still a war, people understand the war is a big problem and we have to be prepared. Not. That's why strategical communication is so important, because we need 24 hours, 7 days, 5 days in the year, speaking about important topics government need for speaking for the people. Because main necessary is in the United Nations. What I see in Lithuanian or Poland problem, it could be problem, like my opinion. You think you under NATO umbrella. And people a little bit thinking like, what we have to worry about if NATO came and defend us? It's a big mistake. I strongly believe that NATO came, but first 3 days, it's a main problem in any sort of the war. And we need United Nations. A United Nations start from the kindergarten, from the school, and the main person who have to prepare a nation for such type of trouble, it's a school teacher. It's a church. Mr. Churchill says about it. Mm-hmm. If I have the power like a school teacher, I will be very pleasure. And problem is, we need to speak people. We have to prepare people all the time. We need to United Nations, united by any sort of connection we can. Church, public communication, strategic communication, culture, schools, higher education, army, territorial defense. One place where the government and nation do not have any tensions. It's only one place. It's place of national defense. Why the army force in every country in Ukraine, it's about 96% of the trust in, because interest of the government and interest of the people is connect in this very closely. All of us want to live. So that's why it's a territorial defense. And any sort of connection between government on the military term is the most effective things to prepare a nation for the war. What we can to do? We can to provide more military learning, training for our people, and give more efforts for the territorial defense, because it's what is territorial defense? What is the meaning of territorial defense? Military career is a very specific type of job, but a lot of people who do not want to be professional military, want to defend this country. Which way? Which institute? It's territorial defense. In territorial defense go a lot of people who has a huge credibility in business and culture and something like this. Now in Ukrainian army serve about more than 40 stars of Ukrainian cinema, something like that, pop culture. So they they could give an example when they go to the territorial defense by a leader of public opinion, something like this, necessary to be connection with government and with military, to ready for defense. And this is an area where we don't need a lot of arguments to make people understand, and this is necessary. It's one of the most important institutes is territorial defense, and comparing institutes, because people understand completely. I want to be professional military, but I want to defend my country. He is motivated. He completely understands what they do. He understands they have to fight if enemy come, and he give his best for this. His knowledge, his experience, his connections, his network, and a lot of businessmen who comes to territorial defense come with all networks they have. Business connections, culture connections, civil experiences like this, and it makes it incredible effective. It's a principle of the French foreign legions. When a lot of people come to foreign legions, and one of them doctor, and another science men, another businessmen, they can be soldiers, and they collect a very different collective experience, and make another level of understanding, of motivation and professionalism. And most where we can, if we ask about our mistakes, the main mistakes, it's not so give attention for territorial defense. Now we understand it.
But as I know, that concept of territorial defense is quite new in Ukraine. As I understood, it was well developed till the moment of aggression. It was developed enough.
It was 1 year and a half to very difficult tensions about what type of territorial defense we want to have. We speak with all countries in Eastern Europe and Scandinavian, which has new territorial defense. Home guards, yes. And I was in a group in the office of president who provided the law of the total resistance and territorial defense. I was inside these tensions. It's a two model, which is more independence for the people. It's not part like an army, it's just army and territorial defense. But after that, we decided army could have to provide territorial defense, and it was right, because it's recruiting and supply. It's only armed force. It could be provided like a civil activity. And one problem is we have to. It was very очень политизированная тема, как сказать.
Politically driven.
Politically driven, the topic. It's a lot of our oppositions try to play on this goal. This is why we speak in 1.5 years. Then вместо того, чтобы instead to make territorial defense. This is a problem. So it was very politically очень нагруженная политическая тема была. Overweight political term. This is a problem. That's why it's one of the big mistakes. If we start before 1 year, and успели,
will be in time.
And we will be in time to provide territorial defense. It's more best. We will be ready better for this war. This will maybe one goal.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you, and now probably let's talk about Western support. Yeah, of course. that it's a key thing, and it's very important for all countries of our region. Now we can see what is the tensions and things going around supplying Ukraine by weaponry. What interest groups related to our region's security we can identify in the establishment in the Western countries? So firstly, I want to ask this question, you, Ambassador.
There's a series of interest groups that are of importance to us, but perhaps the biggest interest group that we should care about and we should be worried about is general population of our Western allies. And here key words have already been mentioned: the strategic communication, the trust in the society, as Alexei mentioned, and the trust in intelligence reports by political leadership and by professionals that are responsible for communication to the general public, and then subsequently the strategic communication. Well, actually, if you have 30 years of illusionary communication to the population, that war is impossible in Europe, that there will be no more war, that there is no threat, well, I recall us diplomats, Lithuanian diplomats, how difficult it was to accept each NATO summit in the final statements, resolutions, and declarations about the fact that there is no imminent security threat to our territory here in Europe. Well, all of that builds up certain mentality. Not only just perception, just builds up mentality. And when you have two generations that grow up, that are being upbrought within this informational, such an informational space, and with this narrative, so then of course there is absolutely no willingness to invest into defense, because that's waste of money. And here you have the result. I mean, at the beginning of this last stage of aggression. The war has been going on already for 8 years, but against Ukraine. But this stage, the most dramatic stage, 6 months. And at the beginning of those 6 months, when there were reports that the stock of ammunition for howitzers ranged from 3 hours to 3 days in different countries. So that dramatic situation is given too little of attention. And this unwillingness, no political will to invest very much depends on the, on what people think, on the electorate. And this electorate has to get relevant, adequate information. And then here we have strategic communication. I would not like to refer to the word propaganda. We have to simply, the government, each government has the duty to adequately inform the citizens. And if sometimes there is too much drama in this information, that is also very useful, because in a liberal society you get a response, you get a dispute, you get argument. The more dispute there is, the better, because that draws the attention that has a wider outreach. And all of that helps to bring up the adequate perception of threat and of the security situation. And in fact, we know that there was certain, among number of allies in Europe, there was certain kind of glass ceiling that information from intelligence reports were not reaching the top levels, or the top levels were censoring them, and then intelligence and medium-ranking officers somehow had to adapt them to this wishful thinking of the political elite, and messaging this illusionary thinking to the general society. So that is the biggest mistake that we have to learn. And that is where we have to concentrate. We have to speak about with our partners. And so the first interest group to speak about that is, of course, the political establishment in our allies in the country, our allied countries, and the political analysts and journalists, media, those who deliver, who can actually give the wider outreach, who can multiply the message. So that is the task for us diplomats, and I also stand for more attention to this task for our diplomacy in our system. Of course, there are different competing lines of thinking what we should do and how we should divide our resources. But this interest group, that is those who multiply this message, get ready for the war, as Alexis said, each day. Prepare your society so that it would be ready for the war each day. Invest properly into defense, and that is the key task of the state as organization.
Okay, thank you. The same question maybe for you, David. What auditories are most important and to whom we need to communicate?
So it's very interesting. Maybe I will talk now like a professor from my readings, what I was noticing, what Western scholars were discussing about defense policy strategy in their countries. So a few years before this stage of aggression in Ukraine started, a lot of scholars in Western countries started talking that it's not enough anymore to think about defense policy and security only from the elitistic perspective. That means government and armed forces, that society is coming back. Society wants a bigger stake in defense policy, security policy implementation. And the best example was shown Afghanistan. They say why Western countries retreated from Afghanistan, because common people basically didn't understood why we are in Afghanistan, because it was elitistic project. And then now events in Ukraine is kind of confirming that idea. They say, yes, you need armed forces, yes, you need government officials, but without society, which basically by participation also as the chair around the table and the right to have a voice, or maybe sometimes even veto right. So from that, if we're looking at more societal level, we're going back to strategic communication as interest group, let's say all people. And that goes for education. As a professor, when I go to international conference, you know what basically 100% question which I will get when I have small talk? So I'm from Lithuania, so thank God they know where Lithuania is. So you're talking Russian. And again, I have to explain that Lithuanian language is not the Slavic language family, etc. And I think 32 years independent, we're going, participating, scholars, politicians, military, businessmen, students, and you still have to explain what is Lithuania, why we're different from Russia. And I think it's still a lot of homework must be done. Another example is from strategic communication. Last year, I was preparing syllabus for my war theory class. I was just looking through new articles. One established Western academical journal, very respected. Oh, I see article about Lithuanian post-war Forest Brothers fight. The title, Lithuanian Civil War. And okay, since when post-war situation is called civil war? I look who the author. Author is Hungarian, but studying in St. Petersburg. Okay, that's more interesting. And that means, let's say, but article is written, everything is right, footnotes, quotations, everything as from academical perspective, good article. But the message, very bad for us. And it's very subtle. Sometimes you have to look Russian propaganda, and this version you can find everywhere. And basically, if we want, let's say, to work with our Western friends and audiences, basically every Lithuanian citizen, no matter what he's doing in his profession, he will find in his professional field, let's say, area to educate his friends in Western countries. And that is your interest group. Because Russian actions are everywhere. And if not working in one place, they will try somewhere else. So but that is total. And that, I think, what we already understand. Our friends in Western countries still don't understand that meaning of totality. You're talking about comprehensive approach, which is too bureaucratical term. I think total it captures the essence of what actually is happening and where that everybody must be invested and trying to understand what is happening.
Problem is the war is real start before 10 years they act. The Russians make decisions to take Ukraine by military way in the July of the 25. Next year after first Maidan. And I was in Moscow, I was working with Dugin, and I know what they decide and when they decide. Problem is nothing to believe in this. But after 10 years, we have second Maidan, Russians start to take Crimea, and we have Minister of Defense, Russian citizenship, head of the security service, Russian citizenship, and head of the Interior, and the Minister of Interior is a Russian citizenship. They provide a huge, by scale, huge strategical operation to weak Ukraine and weak West for this. They prepare for 10 years for this. They take our economy, they go down our army, they take all of our security services and entire ministry, and they убедили West that Ukrainian has no be in NATO, Ukraine and Georgia, and after that they try to kill Georgia, try to capture Ukraine, and the problem is all these 10 years, government to have to speak with people. People will say, "You stupid, you crazy, government, you real crazy." Nobody believe in war after even, I say, from my experience, from my opinion, now nobody from the people, especially in NATO countries, do not believe in war, will not believe in war after even Ukrainian experience. But you have to speak with the people, you have to prepare them different ways, because when the military crisis start, people understand what they have to do. They ворчать как будет. So they will speak. You government, you are crazy, but they have to be prepared. They have to understand what to do if tomorrow the war start. And after that, most resource government need in the first day of the war is a trust from the population. And it's a rhetorical question, but what population give more trust for government? Population who was prepared for 10 years, or population who was not speaking with government about any type of things, about war, about military preparation. Мы понимаем, о чем речь идет. Да.
Yeah, so I think the essential things about problems was told. So what to do? I remember that maybe that was March or April. You Alexei, told that now the special military operation is complete. Now the war begins, and you meant that now they are not using only military means to conquering Ukraine, but now they're starting to use informational and political means in the West, because it's a war. It's a complex thing. So what can we do with the Russian influence in the West? What should we do?
The collective West have understand, like, as my opinion, three things. First, we have to not trust Kremlin at all. At all. At all.
We need to teach Western establishment about this.
Never. Because I was in a negotiations group which is preparing Istanbul agreements. And on my own eyes, I see what the Russians do. They sign промежуточный, как будет? all of us understand intermediate agreements, and broke it another day. We signed intermediate agreements, they broke it another day. We have черновик, как это сказать, for 90% already draft for Istanbul negotiations. We come in Istanbul, our delegation, and they broke and lied in ice, just in ice. No believing for Russians. Bismarck says the agreements with Russia not credible like a paper, price of paper they sign. And second one, we have to be prepared to vote before the war. Right now I say unpleasant things, but at the end of the March, Ukrainian army lost all necessary shells and rockets. And from the end of the March, for beginning to the July, we have no very necessary type of munitions. What was in the battlefield? Russians spent 60,000 shells in the day. We can answer only 4,000. Our soldiers, 15 hours in the day, sitting on the rockets and on the shells, and we can't do nothing for this, because West was not preparing for this. And before the war started, the 3rd of December, our Minister of Defense, Alexei Reznikov, says it from the open way. He says we need anti-stingers, anti-aircraft missiles, and we need some anti-tank guided missiles, like a javelins, like something like this. We need a whole preparation. We need a sanction for preserve this war. But Western military experts and government thinks what? Ukraine just still three days after that war. Our foreign minister, Dmitry Kuleba, says us, when we was in Washington on 23rd of February, he have a meeting with President Biden and the military and political advisors, and they face Russians tomorrow, have the aggressions, and he прощались как бы.
Say farewell.
Say safe bye-bye, like with he says me, I feel myself like a cancer ill person, and they say bye-bye at all. Just all. Nobody believe that we can stay more than 3 days, and nobody preparation. After that, we all need quick reaction, all collective West with Ukraine. But it was 3 months. 3 months, 2 months before first Rammstein, and 3 months before the ammunition and weapons start to go to Ukraine with the necessary quantity. It was a very huge. I don't understand at all right now how we stay these 3 months, because at the end of the 2nd of April, we have 4 rockets for multi-rocket launch system. This was all. When the Kyiv defense, we have 4 days without any munitions for our artillery before they come from the west ammunition depots. It was a very difficult operation because the town was surrounded, and it's как висело на ниточке все. The fate of Ukraine was just on the
on the edge.
On the edge, because nobody believe we can stay. Nobody believe in war. Nobody preparing necessary way for this war. Absolutely same situation, it's a mirror situation between people and government. Even if government says we have to be ready for the war, and other people says no. You're a little bit crazy. If people says to government, we have to be prepared to the war, government says, no. We're thinking about elections, we're thinking about light future, we're thinking about a lot of things, but not so unpleasant things like war. And somebody have to take responsibility. But we can't требовать. We can't demand from the people, from the nation, to do the government work. Government to have to take whole responsibility for foreign affairs, for collective support and help, and for preparing people for the war. Speak with people. make them understand, make them prepare. And every day, every hour, 10 years, 20 years, 14 years. We had a great example. We all have a great example. It's Finland. Finland prepared with Russia from the 1940 or before 44. All of the existence of the Finland is preparing for the war. That's why Russians do not say nothing when the Finland go to the NATO, because they completely understand that Finland could give to the Ural Mountains if the war starts, because Finland is preparing completely civil society, territorial defense, and armed forces. If we need to example, it's Finland.
Yeah, all parts
all
together.
Parts. It's a total resistance, total preparing for the war.
Okay, so the same question to all participants: how we can fight Russian influence, soft power in Western countries to achieve our goals? Valdi, maybe let's start from you.
In some handbooks, history of military art, including my handbook, is the first page, is so-called military principles. Nobody used such page. It's not my page, it's copy-paste from other books. Some general rules of the war, yes. And such principles exist. For example, aggressive actions, concentration of effort, yes, management of resources, and very important, initiative. Yes, it's about 16 of them. Nobody reads such books. If they read, they understand. You can't win a war without being active in your actions. I will say in all terms of warfare. If you sit in fortress and your enemy put cannons on the batteries and begin shoot to your fortress, if you wait, it takes some days and your walls will be broken. But if you organize something in night, some brave soldiers sent and to destroy one battery, next morning they will not concentrate on burning your walls, but they concentrate to make defense of such batteries. It's a very simple thing. The same in our days. Putin do this, Putin do that. What do we? Attack him by information means. Open weak points of Putin regime and begin to talk about this using 25 newspapers immediately in one day. And you win, because somebody reads such newspapers. Yes. What he does is Putin. One man against mankind. One man. Thousands of dying people. Concentrate on leader. Cut society of Russia into Russians and Soviet population. Russians will not all of them are Soviet population, and really regime of Putin use Soviet style symbols and even of course he connect all possible ideas, but if you see deeply, he concentrate on Soviet things. Be active. Each week, some clever people can sit and create such problems, Kuril Islands, Kaliningrad, what about law? Yes, and what about some rights of Moscow to Novgorod, for example? The right to be gravity center of Russia. It's examples from my brain. But if you use really good experts in creating such things, you begin to fighting a war. We have a war, not open, not with soldiers, but in information fields. In all possible other fields, using hybrid warfare, not only counter-hybrid, but also hybrid warfare, and you need short time to destroy, but concentrate on such things. Yes. We use in our group some method in our military service time. If some man is too active to be aggressive all around us, we concentrate and say, we begin to attack him, each of us, each 5 minutes, not in open way, but in information. or completely say, you are not president of Russia. You are not Mr. Putin, you even only Putin. It's a very effective form against Russians and the Russian Empire because they are image that they are big, great Russia, Великая Россия. No Великая Россия. You are a problem for mankind. And step by step, dividing, yes. Divide et impero, all principles of Roman Empire. And you defeat, but begin to do. We always are waiting, we are too late, yes, and act not too much, yes. And now about West society. West society create new kind of ideology of West society. I will maybe concentrate on West Europe, yes. They imagine that something changed, that European Union come from rights of people. Really not. It's from empire of Roman, Holy Roman Empire, of Roman Empire in this time, 2000 ago, yes. Use all such old kinds of cultures, which create us as Europeans, as Christian empire, yes. And to create also how to mobilize people. Because if you say that, yes, war will never be, you create pacifistic society. And pacifistic society, especially young people who finish some studies in your schools, they will not able to fight. They are not prepared at all. But if you take back to your old traditions of locals, like Switzerland, yes, still existing 200 years in peace, but they still are strong. Good example. Why we can do? They are not aggressive, not attack other countries, not participating in some missions, yes, but they can defend themselves. Is the best result, best example for West society. But we have to show such societies. You know, and for my students, I always say, the worst thing can happen for the army is long-lasting peace. Of course, it's a joke, yes, but it's not only a joke. Because people not remember that war was and can create very ineffective societies. The most important ineffective society is rich and weak. It's West Europe, rich and weak. The best topic for attack, yes. But it's very hard to do this. Because when you begin to talk, you say, oh, militaristic man, maybe from medieval time. Alarmist, yes. But we need to do this in our societies, and sometimes for military people, is a responsibility to talk such things to civil society. War can be. And from our experience, all of us have to fight. It's the reason why young boys, young girls, how to go to gym and to prepare their bodies. Because maybe you will have to survive, to live, and to take care about our children. So we have to work, not to only talk, but to work deeply and hard.
Thank you, Ambassador. Your thoughts about that?
Actually, I think that these days, in terms of what we should do now, I mean, the biggest or the most important task is performed by Ukrainian people, by Ukrainian fight, by sacrifice of Ukrainian people. And that really brings a dramatic change in the perception of where we live and in what environment we live and what we should do among our Western allies, in the societies of our Western allies. But of course we should also tackle such, we should remind also or draw the attention of our partners that cultural events are also means of this hybrid war, of hybrid influence, and so each and every concert by a Russian performer is also playing a kind of role supportive of Kremlin, and we should remind that the wish by think tank to have a Russian speaker in the audience and to defend the position of Kremlin is also the help or assistance to Kremlin to spread their narrative. And we should remind the journalists that just reporting or reproducing the speech by Putin without any comment at the time of the war is not non-biased reporting. It's just help, assistance to Russia to spread their narrative. So yeah, we have a lot of work to do to remind or to draw the attention of our Western partners. We are fighting in this information war, in this hybrid war already for more than 10 years. We already, we know much more, we are much more advanced in terms of perception and in terms of resilience, and we have the duty to teach our Western allies and to draw their attention to the weak points in their societies.
Okay, thank you, David.
Okay, maybe a bit more skepticism or more cautiousness. So I will continue what Professor said. The biggest problem when I see in Western countries is very simple, conceptual, fundamentally. They have just different understanding what war is from this region. And I see Russia on permanent war footing for as many years as possible. We always were at war with Russia, but if you go to Paris, London, they say war is when you see tanks and jet fighters. Otherwise, it's something else, but it's not a war. And then if they will have this kind of understanding of war, it will be difficult for them to convince about this permanent aggression coming from Russia. So that is fundamental point is, let's say that yes, we have to talk and talk every day, every minute, from politicians, academical people, think tanks, journalists, military, let's say that the war is not only, let's say, when you're fighting on the ground, war is cyber, economy. Are Lithuanians surprised that Russia closed Nord Stream gas supply to Germany and Europe? 15 years ago, they did this with Druzhba. They actually were kind of making an experiment and they're just expanding. It's old news for us, but it's new news to Germany and France. So maybe sometimes they should listen to us, but we cannot overplay our card. If you always will come to London, Brussels, say, let's say, we told you so, they will say, okay, I hear you one time, maybe second time, third time. On fifth time, they say, you know, it's time to stop telling us, let's say, I told you so. We also must be smart. We have to find ways how to talk with our friends in Western countries, but not always, let's say, be cocky. Let's say, we knew better. Yes, we knew maybe better Russia, but sometimes we does not drop it into the face of Germans and French. They are also very people with
counterproductive communication.
It might be counterproductive communication. So that what I see, and that is a sad part. What is happening in Ukraine? People are dying every day. But as is Finland example, they created a habit and structure to stand against Russia, let's say, for many decades. So if you wanted to change habits in Germany, Italy, and France, that also requires not a year or two. It's not sprint, it's marathon. But it's very difficult to do marathon when every day people are dying. But I don't see the other way. You cannot get a revolution in Berlin or Paris, really drastic revolution, let's say 1-2 years. They already accepted one fact. War is not academical topic. War actually is happening in Europe, and they accepted that fact. Second fact is that Russia always fighting. So we have to work on that and to convince them that Russia is in permanent mindset of war. They are kind of state fortress and they're always fighting. So but that will take time. Sadly, while war is happening and fight happening in Ukraine. But I don't see the other way. And that means we must be more, not moderate or cautious, but more tempered in our sometimes discussions and emotions. That our friends will need time to understand what is happening. But I see the direction that they're taking in that. They're trying to understand that, but still lots of work to do.
Colonel?
I would tell from military point of view, and of course it's sad that conflicts in the world happening, but thanks God that our political leadership, MOD or state, allow us as a militaries go together with our allies for the missions abroad to the other continents, to the almost each conflict where they need peacekeeping mission or peace reinforcement or the other. So with this, working with our allies, I think we are, as a Lithuanian soldiers, convincing them that, of course, they should be ready and help us. With our host nation support for the soldiers who are arriving forces to Lithuania. I think we persuading also them that they can easily come here. They see us, militaries, they see our people, society, and developed country, which is worth to defend. And of course, as we're going to work in our NATO HQs, in multinational HQs, doesn't matter at which level, we as a military, we should show our skills, our professionalism, and to be seen as those who fight in Orsha battle as a real Lithuanian soldier. This would convince them and help us in the future. Thank you.
What the West have to understand, that we have to understand, it's not no way to manage with Russia like European countries or Western countries manage with each other. Because the main mistake is deal with Russia in political way, informational way, economical way, like Switzerland dealing with German. It's no way. Russia is a special case, and it have to be when West politics, as I think, have to be one way to deal with Western countries, and absolutely another way dealing with Russia, because Russia's strategy against West formed by Vladimir Ilyich Lenin 200 years ago. He was infernal person. He was infernal, but very clever person. It's very, very easy to understand. My father was a high-ranking Soviet military, and I grew up in Eastern Germany when I was a little boy. And father said me, and all his friends said to me, "Son, understand. They preparing me like a future military man, and they says, Europe always be for us the field of the battle. Always. No conditions is stopped. Always will be." And the times it was like oil pipeline, like Druzhba and something like this. And friend of my father open says me, "We do this for corrupt Europe and corrupt the collective West. It's not about economy, it's about corrupt their system. To give money in Europe, to connect with us a lot of connections and influence us this way." And how we to have that, to understand Russian view on the West? It's like a big piece of ice with a lot of cracks. And Lenin says, to fight West is very easy, because West criticized itself much better than our analyst can understand the best. Just reading Western books and discussions and newspapers, find little cracks, big cracks, any cracks, and still strike in these cracks. Criminality, rights of human rights, ecological, military, politicians, between every cracks is our goals and our target to strike them. It's a still situation right now. They very carefully read all the books, all of the Western discussion. They will analyze this discussion and make decisions. And the problem is we have to change the strategy against Russia at all. One part of one sort of dealing is dealing between Lithuania and France, and between Eastern Europe and New Europe and Old Europe, and absolutely another things is dealing with Russians. And to have to strike Russia, it's a strategical decision of the West. I'm skeptic about this. I don't believe the West, collective West, make a decision to strike Russia or strike Putin regime, but I hope strongly about this. But you have a great opinion to take Ukraine in the collective West, because we will fight from this moment forever. If West not ready for fighting for Russia, we fight from this day forever. And it's это большое приобретение для Запада будет принять Украину. It's very fine for the West to take us on the collective West side. We, in fact, in there, it could be proclaimed by the law and taking us in the European Union or NATO, and you have a right flank of the NATO, which is never give up to fighting. We are your tools for сдерживание России, как это сказать? To prevail Russian aggression or prevail Putin regime. But from our opinion, we have to go down the Putin regime. And the concentrate on the leader is one of the most important direction on this. Because Russians believe in Tsar. And striking the Tsar, cut the connection between Tsar and society is one of the best way, but it's the tactics, it's not strategic. Yes.
Okay, so we still have time for questions, and I saw that here's. Could you? No. Here was the first.
I am Colonel retired Saulius Guzevičius from Minister of Internal Affairs, and in Mr. Arestovich's morning previous speech, he mentioned that Russians are very much focused on Putin by himself to the history, even more than to the geopolicy. And really what we can see, Russians are preparing the different fake narratives before the invasion to Georgia, about Ossetians, before the invasion to Ukraine, about that Novorossiya. Of course, my colleagues here, they very well know that during each Zapad exercises, active phase, when the huge military is concentrated on our borders, not far from our capital, Vilnius, we all the time hear the same fake narrative, what is prepared by Dugin team from 2005, that Vilnius should belong to Belarus. Because during Middle Ages, Lithuanian kingdom was created not by Lithuanians, but by Belarusian Orthodoxies, not by Baltic pagans, but Belarusian Orthodoxies. That word even didn't exist. So I think we need to ask ourselves, are we fighting that fake narrative? Or at least are we ready to fight that fake narrative? Because in Lithuania it doesn't work at all, but it very well works in Belarus and it very well works in Russia. And we can hear that in school books, universities, TV talk shows. And one opposition member told me that the youngsters from 20 to 35 years, they deeply believe in that. And if it will be invasion to Lithuania, they will not need a Wagner mercenaries. They will have the volunteers enough to bring the capital back, like a reconquista. So are we ready?
This question for me is, I am an author of conception of the Rus Ukraina. You know, it's mean from what I think like Mr. Putin. It's too personal to think this way. Russia is one state one culture in the modern world, which has historical center, now in these borders, just in Ukraine. They never give up. They want to take Kiev at all, and the tensions between us and Russians, it's like Palestinian and Israeli, who belongs to the Temple Mount. Yes, it's a problem. It's the same for us who belongs to the Kievo-Pechersk monastery, because it's Rus at all start from this source. And the same situation for Lithuania and Belarus, because it's old tensions between great dukes of Lithuania, which is in Russia, historians understand like second Russia, second Rus. Rus-Litovskaya, да. And it means that another example, Rus could be modern European free country. And they fight not exactly just against Lithuania or against Poland or against another Baltic states or European states. They fight against idea from another source of be Russians. They understand like this. They think Ukrainian traders, Lithuanian traders, they trade a great idea about big Russia, and they want to collect. I don't know, do you know this, but Russian Empire created by Ukrainians. Feofan Prokopovich, which is the head of the Kyiv-Mogila school, he was the head of the Synod, of the Holy Synod of Russia, and he уговаривал 3 года, как уговаривал будет? They persuaded Peter of the Great, of Peter the First, 3 years to rechange from Moscow Tsar be to Russian Empire. Why? Because династическое право, как сказать? Because it's a dynasty rights. Moscow Tsar do not have dynasty rights to collect lands and collect people in the Eastern Europe, because they was from Romanovi. And only dynasty right to collect Eastern Europe lands, it was Gediminians or Rurikovich. And that's why he says you have to be emperor, because you take a new right to collect this land. They do this, and they pretend on our lands like a dynasty rights at all, still like 500 years ago. We have to strike this idea. I always told now in my country, for our politicians, I say we have to be a center to collect Eastern European things, our former Soviet Union things, not Moscow. We are. And I don't know, do you know this? But in the February after the first Maidan, in the February 2005, I speaking with Kirill, which is now is Patriarch of Russia, Gundyaev, yes, about 3 hours. And he says, we have a new idea. And the new idea is we have to collect all these lands, Belarusian, Baltic states, Ukraine, and make a new Kiev and Rus, or new USSR, with the capital in the Kiev, with the cultural capital in St. Petersburg, with the political capital in Moscow, and foreign affairs capital in the Minsk. It's an idea. Russians have a lot of this sort of idea. It's we have enough доказательства, enough proofs in their rhetorics and their narratives. They try to make these things after they captured Ukraine in February, if it will be a success for them. And after that, we can only imagine what they say to the Baltic country and the Poland and the collective West if they try to make this idea to rebuild a former Soviet Union or rebuild or Kiev and Rus or something like this. They have idea to change capital to the Kiev and make this narrative more stronger after winning the Kiev. This narrative more stronger to base on the historical basement. And after that says, stop. Vilna, no Vilnius. You have to be there in Kiev and Rus. As I understand Russians, they could say we create a new Great Duke of Lithuania. They could say anything. People who take by icons together last side of Russia and Stalin could provide any idea in the narrative. And we have to attack this narrative, and best way to do this to have open narrative. We have to say the Moscovia, it's an illness creation, which is искажение первоначальной идеи Руси. Distortion was the first idea, the prehistorical idea of the Kiev and Rus, and Kiev is the capital of the Eastern or former Europe. We have to collect all power of efforts, и представительство должны иметь мы. И борьба идет за первородство, на самом деле, как у арабов и евреев, так у нас с ними. И единственный путь это побороть, это когда Киев заберет на себя ответственность за бывший Советский Союз, за европейскую часть и за вот эту вот историческую часть. В это nobody believe in this, nobody believe in necessary. But if we heard Putin carefully, his speech the day before the war started, he speaking only in historical reasons. No political, no economical, no fighting with collective West, just historical. And they really thinking so. They provide this narrative, and we have to cut them.
He's operating in fantasy paradigm.
Yeah, we have to go to the Putin mind and win there, not on the battlefield. First, we have a win in the Russians' minds. Dugin's, Putin's, and the lost of this, all of these people, by historical narrative. Our weapon is historical narrative, and your weapon is Lithuanian weapon is historical narrative for this, because they really thinking no Vilnius but Vilno.
David, you want to add something?
Few moments, very broad conceptual one. Rumblings of Putin in history is surprising everybody, even us who understand this Russian fetishism with history, let's put it this way. But the major point is, Western countries, Western people are very surprised that Russia, and especially Putin, is explaining his decision to attack Ukraine by using history. Not geopolitics, not economical logic as cost benefits. You're losing money, a lot of, but from history. And that is surprising because Western countries, looking from their perspective of this, they will always calculate from cost-benefit analysis. And that's where matrices are not matching up. And that's our job is, again, explain to Western friends that if you want to understand Russia, don't think from economical perspective, think in historical terms. And what I noticed this summer, in majority of Western newspapers, intellectual magazines, there was a lot of articles where this cultural element was emphasized. It seemed that our friends in Western countries starting to understand that in order to understand Russia, forget economy, forget even geopolitics, go culture and history. And that's our job is now, push this message, look to history, understand that Russia is fighting wars thinking historically, not economically. And that message was for many years lost in Western countries, I guess.
Just a moment. They're ready to spend all their money, all their lives by this historical reason, because it's fighting for self-edifications. Do you know the conception of, how did they call it in Orthodox Church? I don't remember exactly. Это концепция катехон. Do you know катехон conception? Yeah, it's a last power who will stay from the devilic world, who's striking a last light on
and we live in a very primitive society.
They really believe they Katechon. West is the devils, and we are Katechon with the last light fortress, which is staying against the devil. They really think so. We have to understand this. They're thinking historically. They thinking apocalyptically, and they want to spend anything for this, for win this war. And we have to understand this. This misanalysis from the West, the main mistake was because West tried to calculate by economically, by military, by politically.
In their paradigm of understanding of
Russians
reality.
don't think so. They think historically and self-identically and orthodoxly. This is the way. And we have to win on this field, Russians. We have to win Russians on this field.
Ambassador, you want to add something?
Well, actually, I'm a fan of history, and in our work in diplomacy, we definitely spend some time on these issues in promoting, our perception of our history among our allies and among our partners. But also, I have the experience of addressing the audiences on these issues. And also, I have the experience of seeing very small audiences interested in that. And there's the question, and we have very limited resources. Our time, in numbers of those who work in this field, is very small. Resources are small. Do we have really enough resources to open all fronts? Should we really concentrate on this issue when the interest in history is so small among our allies? Now, of course, if Alexei believes that there is a chance to convert Russian general public, then of course we want them to have a different image, different perception, different mentality. I'm perhaps not the one who is optimist on this field, and therefore for me it's very clear that whatever they think, whatever the theory they have, whatever the ambition or reason or historical explanation they have, we have to be strong enough to rebuke them. And what we have to achieve is to be strong enough to counter their attack. That's where we have to concentrate our effort. Whatever they think, and should not care about how they explain and motivate their action. But of course, it depends on how optimistic you are about the possibility to re-educate Russian society and to turn them into a partner instead of having an enemy, an adversary. When it comes to Western societies, our allies, today I dare to say for them it's much more important whether we cherish their values, our values, our European values, how strongly we cherish those values, how strongly they are rooted here, and perhaps that's what we have once more to spend an effort to show that we are part of that value community. Yes, history is important, certain explanations are important, perceptions are important, but again, it's about resources and how many resources, how many fronts we can open.
Okay, thank you. So we have time for one more question.
Okay, thank you. I just would like to thank you for interesting conversation, of course, but would like to bring us back to war issues, okay? I think this is a good opportunity also to maybe look at the lessons learned, what kind of mistakes we've done or didn't do, and maybe we can avoid something in the future. So I think we did one mistake as a state. We missed an opportunity to help for Ukraine to win war faster. And why? If you remember last year in August, it was already started migrants crisis, yes? Everybody understood that is not conventional approach, is a policy by other means. And Lukashenko regimes pushed dozens, thousands of migrants to Lithuania. And some prominent politicians, even former chief of defense of Estonia, right now he's a parliamentarian in European Parliament, advised for Lithuania to declare NATO Article number 4. But of course, I am not blaming that decision. We didn't make that decision. But I think, and our organization was also advocate for that announcement of Article number 4 in August. And I think if we would do that, we would faster NATO decision making, which we needed badly at the beginning, or at the end of February. So we would collect together minds, and NATO bloc would make decisions faster. So 2 weeks in war, even 1 day is a lot. So I would like to ask also this opinion from Mr. Rakutis and Mr. Samashka. Thank you.
The native decision makers, like Ukrainian decision makers, broke the first rule of the military planning. First rule of the military planning is a plan for the worst variant. If we do not prepare for the worst variant, we do not prepare. If we prepare for worst variant, we prepare for higher level variant at all. And maybe it's the main lesson we have to learn from this conflict, with this full-scale war with Ukraine. Because everybody from us and everybody from NATO prepare for another scenario, not for the wars, not for the big continental war after the World War II. And but even young lieutenant learning by, if you want to be prepared, you have to prepare to the worst variant. After that, you prepare at all. That's the main rule. We broke it, and to return for them, it's a good lesson learning for me. It will be.
I will say that casus belli of this war is not only ambitions of Putin and group around him Yes, of course, we can talk about some orthodox style of thinking, which not feels that time is changing, time is permanent, no changes, no reforms in church. Yes, I understand in Cyprus sittings that some differences exist. But also movement of the West into some direction. If you see to the investment of states into different fields, you see that Russia was investing into defense 10 years, and West was destroying his defense systems at the same time. You can see such, how it looks. Problem also is in West, because image of the future is the same unrealistic as Putin's, but in another direction. Societies is changing so fast that they not remember what they are from. And step by step, West countries destroy these structures. I can say about church, for example, very simple things. Church, no more church in West countries. You can see staying buildings, but not believers come to them. Yes. And as a system, how they were constructed. People imagine that something definitely changed and that history is not important at all because all times, yes, everything is in future. And it's lessons for West countries that no, reality is reality. Yes, of course changes have to be, but you have to have the bridges. When I go to the other parliaments in European countries, always see to the oldest photos or paintings. What is the beginning of the state? In most cases, it's 85, 80-15, yes. Even in Sweden, 80-15. This dynasty when begin. What is before is not important, yes. And when you have so weak roots of society, you make mistakes because you do changes on the last 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. But you have to understand that some things happen in civilization each 1,000 years or each 500 years. So people have to be deeper. So it's lessons learned also for West countries to rethink their past, today, and future. Yes. So 2 directions. And I propose to found 12 people as apostles to say 6 to one direction and 6 to other direction, and world will be in 100 years happy.
Unfortunately, our time is over and we need to finish. Well, I think the main conclusions, main findings are that Western world and Moscow living in totally different paradigm of understanding of reality, and we need to communicate completely different to that directions. And the other thing is that if we want to prepare defending our countries, we need to implement more trust government, society, and all institutions, and to create effective structures to use this civil society energy to make us stronger. So thank you.
It's not be me if I don't take a final vote. Sorry for that, but I have like an insight. The main goal, the main duty for the government to the people, to bring them to reality.
So, thank you for participants. Thank you for your attention. And
so, ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Thank you everyone for participating in the international conference dedicated to commemorate 508th anniversary of a victory of Grand Duchy of Lithuania in the Battle of Orsha. And now let me invite you, all of you, to watch Lithuanian Armed Forces Orchestra and Honor Guard Company Flag Group Parade from the Gates of Dawn to the Palace of Grand Dukes and Lithuanian historical flag raising ceremony. The parade starts at 16:45 at the Gates of Dawn, and the flag raising ceremony starts at 5 o'clock at the Palace of Grand Dukes. So thank you very much.